Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome to yet another round of clusters talks. Sustainability from A to B, the transition pathway for mobility is our topic of today. As you may be well aware, the European Commission has published a transition pathway for mobility very recently, actually just last week, which offers opportunities to bring the industrial community together to find common solutions to the challenges, to the upcoming challenges. My name is Juvila Kropait. I will be your moderator today for this session. I'm very glad to see you all, and I'm very glad to see you all joining. I will just remind you, even though you might be aware of this very well, but the EU Mobility Transition Pathway is a plan, an actionable plan co-created by the Commission together with the national and regional authorities, representatives of industry, NGOs, and all other interested parties. It identifies challenges, opportunities, conditions, and actions needed by all parties to lead the green and digital transition and improve the ecosystem's resilience, obviously in line with the updated EU industrial strategy as well. Your inputs will be key as well, especially during the co-implementation phase. So we will be very happy to hear from clusters. We're eager to find out how ready you are to commit to this, and obviously look for how instrumental clusters can be in this regard as well. And just to give you a bit of broader mobility context, I will just say one sentence that mobility ecosystem covers the entire value chain of the automotive, rail, and waterborne sectors, employs 14 million people, and this time in the mobility pathway, bicycles are included as well. But we will delve into this a bit later, a bit further on. Let me introduce you to the agenda, what we will do here. We will hear some news from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. We will have a presentation from the Commission. Two representatives of the Commission will guide us through the transition pathway for mobility. We will ask questions. We will have a panel debate. We will hear from clusters, and gladly the Commission representatives will stay on as well, so you can ask their questions. They're especially eager to hear your inputs and your insights as well. So we are happy to have them with us, and you will hear about the funding opportunities that exist for clusters. So this is roughly the agenda for today. We will spend roughly an hour and a half together. And let me remind you of the housekeeping rules. Slido will be launched, will be used for polls. You will be able to either scan the QR code or go on the website and put in the code, and then it's a very simple. I'm sure you have used it in other conferences, but this is how we get your input as well. If you want to ask questions, use Zoom Q&A function and the chat function to comment or share links. All of the links that we will need to deliver to you or will want to inform you about will be on the chat as well. So do follow the chat, and I can see that people are saying hi to us in the chat now, introducing themselves and telling us where they are from. So thank you so much. It's nice and warm to see you all joining and communicating with us. Another housekeeping rule: if you want to speak, do raise your hand and we will give you the actual floor, not just the chat, but you'll be able to ask your question live, and we encourage that very much as well. The session is being recorded, and the recording will be published on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. So that's it, I think, for the housekeeping rules. And let me present the news from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform very briefly. Transition pathway for mobility, a roundtable event on the transition pathway for the mobility ecosystem on the 29th of February in Brussels. The Commission is happy to invite you to participate in the roundtable event to the transition pathway for the mobility ecosystem. And the event is going to be the occasion to present and discuss the transition pathway for the mobility ecosystem, co-created, as I said, with the industry and the civil society. the event will also kickstart the co-implementation process, a call for stakeholders, pledges to underpin the actions of the transition pathway. It is in person, open to public. Do not hesitate to share the invitation with other interested parties and do register as well. Register for the European Cluster Conference, which is going to happen in May, on the 7th and 8th of May as well, at the Square building in Brussels. The conference aims to highlight the vital role of clusters in advancing EU industrial priorities. Pivotal topics: the green transition, the digital transition, and resilience building. Deep dive into key drivers like skills, funding, and technology. The registration is also open, so please do that, do attend, and let's hope to see you there. Matchmaking event within Cluster Conference. As part of the European Cluster Conference, the next matchmaking event, will take place on the 8th of May, 2024. And it offers participants a dedicated framework to find potential partners at all stages of their supply chain. They were invited to look for further projects, specific products or services for their organization. And it will also take place physically during a 4 hours matchmaking session where participants will meet in a dedicated room of the conference venue. So that's on the 8th of May, 2024. Matchmaking event within the conference. Have your own booth at the European Cluster Conference. That's also an opportunity. We are excited to feature up to 70 exhibition booths, and they will be a hub of activities promoting key European Commission services, cluster organizations, Euroclusters, national cluster associations, and other key stakeholders. If you're eager to have a stand at the conference, there's an email that you can reach out to, ensuring to mention the name of your cluster organization and also cluster partnership in your email. The deadline is actually in 2 days, this Friday on the 9th of February. So do submit your candidature and have your own booth. Another date that we are asking you to save, that's also quite soon, 26th of March. Well, not that soon actually, but there's still time. Save the date for Clusters Meet Regions in Milan, Italy, in partnership with Lombardy Intelligent Factory Association and the Lombardy Regional Authority. We are hosting the Clusters Meet Regions event in Milan, Italy. So do save the date for this one as well. We'll provide you with more details. In terms of news, also make sure to check out the ECCP Trend Universe. We had a separate session during the Clusters talks on this. There's a QR code, and make sure to check it out if you haven't done that by now. It is a strategic foresight instrument that allows you to get deeper understanding of future trends and their impact on your cluster organization. So ECCP Trend Universe, a free trial for all ECCP users with a profile and innovation trends, exclusive trial period, access will be open to all users with a profile in February. And it offers filterable innovation trends for each EU industrial ecosystem. And please take, if you can, you take a 2-minute survey, ECCP user survey. The ECCP will be very glad if you took a 2-minute user feedback survey to share your experience with the ECCP platform. You can find the links in the chat, as I've mentioned. So do go to the chat if you feel like you've missed any of the links, and please take the survey. We will be very thankful. So let's move on and let the Commission speak. Transition pathway for mobility. What is it? What are we still missing? What's the current stage of it? And we'll get a presentation by Dario Basargan and Giuseppe Marotta from DG GROW, European Commission. Guys, I hope you can hear us, and the floor is yours now.
Yes, good morning to all from Brussels, and thank you very much the European Cluster Collaboration Platform for inviting us to today's EU Cluster Talk about the transition pathway for mobility. I'm Dario Bazargan, and I've very recently joined the European Commission where I work as a policy officer in the mobility unit, dealing with specifically shipbuilding and rail supply. And I come from the maritime sector, the maritime industry sector, together with Giuseppe, who has been, as some of you may know, deeply involved in the development, including the co-creation process of the transition pathway. We will be very happy to guide you through the transition pathway, the current state and the next steps, your engagement, your further engagement in the implementation process will be indeed very, very crucial. Next slide. So just some background, as Zivile already mentioned, the idea of the transition pathways was introduced in 2021 by the update of our industrial strategy. And that strategy has identified the need to accelerate the twin transition, so the green and the digital transition, while ensuring the resilience, especially in the post-COVID context, of 14 industrial ecosystems, which you can see here, amongst which is the mobility ecosystem. Now, what is a transition pathway? A transition pathway is, in first instance, what we call a co-creation exercise, meaning an exercise that involves the member states, the industry, the local, regional authorities, the clusters, to guide, to support the twin transition. And basically, its aim is to map, to identify, again, with a bottom up approach, involving the stakeholders, the challenges, the needs, and the further actions to achieve our common goal. Next slide, please. So, just a few words about the process. As I said, following the 2021 update of the industrial strategy, we have invited all stakeholders to join us in this co-creation process, which was meant to be an inclusive process with all the stakeholders to identify the needs and actions. It was a staff working document published in 2022 with a survey and consultation process, after which in November 2022, there was the first co-creation roundtable event with over 150 stakeholders dealing with the role of regions, a social dimension, and then after that, 7 co-creation roundtables co-chaired by the relevant stakeholders from the ecosystem were established, and they met during the first half of last year. And now that roundtable format, in fact, was considered very useful to facilitate those exchanges, to jointly identify business cases, needs, and further actions. And now the latest step in this process was actually taken last week with the publication of the transition pathway report for the mobility ecosystem. Next slide. So this is indeed a report that is available online, and it includes over 100 specific actions that were identified during this co-creation process to support the twin transition, as well as the long-term resilience and competitiveness. And these actions were grouped were structured around 7 main building blocks. If I can go to the next slide already. And these 7 building blocks were considered essential to drive the twin transition while ensuring the resilience, sustainable competitiveness, regulation and public governance, social dimension, skills, R&I and technological solutions, infrastructures, and last but not least, investment and funding. So all these elements were seen as key areas for the transition, and these are building blocks that have been used also across all the other industrial ecosystems. And within these building blocks, then the specific actions are detailed in the report. If I can go to the next slide, we will give just a sample. Okay, so Zivile has already recalled the importance of the mobility ecosystems also in economic terms, in employment and GDP contribution. I think it's worth highlighting that the report underlines the important role of clusters and clusters cooperation by acknowledge the potential of clusters and the role to support especially SMEs. Um, In the next slide, we can see just a sample of some actions that were identified by clusters, and I want to take this opportunity to thank the European Clusters Cooperation Platform and all the stakeholders involved for their very active engagement during the co-creation process. Here you can find some some of those actions, but the report, of course, is much more detailed. And indeed, it contains also actions that are relevant for clusters cooperation, identified by the individual mobility subsectors. As I said, we are grateful for this very active engagement from your side, and we look forward, of course, to an equally active engagement in the upcoming co-implementation phase, which my colleague Giuseppe will be very happy to present, and I'm glad to hand him the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dario. And if you can move to the next slide, please. We should now move to the next phase. So what Dario described so far was the first phase, so which consisted in the co-creation of the transition pathway report. We're now moving towards the co-implementation phase, where those actions would have to be translated into concrete action. And the kickoff time of this second phase will be the 29th of February, where we have this event in Brussels. Is an in-person event, and we expect most of you to attend the event. So we really appreciated. I was present in the co-creation process. I really appreciated the contribution from the cluster. From all the cluster community, and really look forward to even a more let's say substantial participation in this upcoming second phase. If we can move to the next slide. This shows you a little bit what is the timeline for the next steps. So it will start. So this second phase will start on the 29th of February. Immediately after, a call for pledges will follow. And then we will be gathering those pledges. But let me deep dive a little bit into the concept of these pledges. If we can move to the next slide, please. So the transition pledges will be commitments coming from all stakeholders who took part to the drafting of the report. So the report was aimed at identifying, the main challenges, the main opportunities, but it's above all the main fields for action to push this transition forward. And now we need to based on the action fields identified, we will need to take some action. We will need any of the involved stakeholders to take concrete actions in this context. So there will be this call for pledges, and all stakeholders, and including clusters, of course, will be asked to participate with to formulate and to share their pledges for the ongoing twin transition. Let me explain a little bit. Let me give you some details, but of course we will be open for questions afterwards if there are still doubts or additional questions. But the transition pledges are some precise and concrete actions undertaken by stakeholders. They should include specific milestones and measurable targets. They need to be linked with the action fields that have been identified within the mobility transition pathway, and they obviously they do not create, so you shouldn't be afraid, because this doesn't imply any legally binding obligation. But these transition pledges are meant to be a tool that would allow us to and when I say us, I mean the whole community, so both the public authority side, but also the industry side, to monitor the level of success or the possible criticalities of the ongoing transition. So we want to really to measure if the direction identified is the right one, if we are going the right direction, and if we are if we are walking the talk, as we usually say. And this is exactly the reason why the European Commission is also preparing, and it will be soon available, a dedicated tool, which is the Transition Pathway Stakeholders Support Platform, which will consist of a dedicated web platform where pledges will be formulated and uploaded and made publicly available, so that the whole transition pathway community can keep track of the evolution of the ongoing transition. And so this is more or less it at this stage, but obviously many more details will be explained and described during the event in Brussels. So I really warmly invite you to register and to participate if you can. If not, please don't be shy today and ask us as many questions as you can. And thanks a lot, Givile, for the time.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I hope that people will have questions before we move further on. Let me just ask you very briefly about this monitoring of the level of success and measurable the instruments. When you say monitor the level of success, that sounds something very hard to do, but could you reveal something about the instruments that should be there and that will be there? And will that also, will you also explain it in greater detail in Brussels?
Look, this co-implementation phase has already started in other ecosystems, parallel ecosystems. So as Dario rightly explained earlier, the transition pathway exercise involves 14 different ecosystems. Mobility ecosystem is just one of the 14 ecosystems, and some of them are already more advanced than us in the process. So they have already published the report months, if not years ago, and they are already launched in the co-implementation phase. They're already far ahead of us. And so you can already have an understanding of what this co-implementation is in reality by checking the results of these parallel ecosystems. But we will show some concrete examples during the event in Brussels. So we will invite also stakeholders from those ecosystems, because the most interesting one of the most interesting elements that came up during the process, and I think it will be even more relevant for the next phase, is the synergies and the proximity between one ecosystem and the other. So you will see in Brussels that some stakeholders commitments, pledges that have been made in other parallel, for example, the tourism one, are extremely relevant for our ecosystem. Because to give you just a concrete example, but Dario can further develop on this, because it's really his own bread and butter, because it has to do with maritime. But it's basically a very large company, ship owner, European ship owner, who made a pledge to infloat a certain number of alternatively fueled ships over the coming years. And this is, something that is immediately related to our ecosystem, because we are, the ecosystem that includes the shipbuilders. So if new ships, alternatively fueled ships, have to be bought by somebody, they will be built and sold by somebody else, and these other stakeholders are within our clusters. So the fact of having those pledges publicly available and measurable, above all, it's extremely important to let not only us as public authority, but also the industry itself and the whole transition pathway community keep track of the evolution. Then success, we will see if this will lead us to a success, but also if there might be criticalities raising. This is exactly also one of the purposes of this exercise, is that this will allow us to adjust the trajectory if we realize that something didn't go according to the forecast. And I would like also Dario to complement, because I think he can really say more about those synergies and the proximity with other ecosystems.
Dario, maybe you could
Giuseppe.
tell us which ecosystem is the most advanced with this.
Thank you both. I think Giuseppe said already a lot, but I would say the tourism ecosystem is the most advanced, is the most mature. It was the first one to be launched, and I would strongly suggest to look, if you're interested, at the stock taking report that has been published also last week after 2 years, where you can indeed find the examples, some of the examples mentioned by Giuseppe, not only the example of pledges, but also the example of progress report of those pledges. So how progress was tracked and reported. Now, Giuseppe mentioned the case of a private operator, cruise line, but it's important to underline again that in the same report you will find examples from associations, national associations, European associations, municipalities, regions, member states, so really from a wide range of stakeholders. This is an important point. The second point is indeed, as you were hinting to, the importance of synergies, especially our ecosystem. The mobility ecosystem has a strong relationships, interdependencies with other ecosystem, the tourism ecosystem being certainly one. That's it from my side for the moment. Thanks.
Okay, we'll see if other people have questions. Thank you so much. Do bear with us. Let us move to the next slide, where we will see a question for all of you. If you could scan the QR code, and it will get you to the question we want to ask. And if you don't want to scan the QR code, you can just go to slido.com or slide.do. I think it works this way as well in the browser, and then put in the hashtag mobility, and this will lead you to a question which I am about to ask. It's a multiple choice question, and it's for us to see your views. Which building blocks of the transition pathway, the building blocks were mentioned in the presentation for mobility, do you consider particularly critical? Sustainable competitiveness, regulation and public governance, social dimension, skills, investment and funding is coming up, R&I and technological solutions, infrastructure, social dimension. So please pick. I think you're only allowed to pick one. Social dimension, investment and funding, sustainable competitiveness. Okay, you are still typing. Thank you for participating. We're still encouraging that. We'll give a couple of minutes for you to keep typing in your questions, choosing one of the options, and then we'll see which one comes comes up as the most common one. Investment and funding, sustainable competitiveness, infrastructure, regulation, and public governance comes as the most common replies. The poll is still active. If you can, if you want to scan the QR code, or go to slide.do and put in mobility. Investment and funding is quite popular now as well. 52% of respondents have chosen this one. R&I and technological solutions and skills. No one considers skills critical. But I think investment and funding was the highest, the most popular of the replies. Investment and funding, sustainable competitiveness, regulation, and public governance. Thank you so much for your answers. This will be an open question, so it might take a couple of more minutes, but we will be very happy, and we very much encourage you to allocate some time and answer this question. And I see that 6 participants do that, so thank you so much. How can clusters support the implementation of the transition pathway for mobility? How can clusters, if you're a cluster member, you can say your views. If you're not, also it would be very useful. How can clusters support the implementation of the transition pathway for mobility? Ecosystem landscape, 6 other participants typing. Do join at slido.com, #mobility. Ecosystem landscape, ecosystem and ecosystem landscape as 2 quite similar responses. We will wait for a couple of more minutes. Lead the transition, foster collaboration between relevant companies in the clusters. Thank you for that. That's quite specific and quite useful. Support to SMEs, information, advice, access to funding, creating synergies between cluster members by helping SMEs to give their contribution to that transition and make their contribution sensible and visible, connecting stakeholders, supporting funding, right investment, funding opportunities, convey information, supporting new technologies, developing, I lost this one, direct link with local SMEs, supporting new technologies, developing base technology from compute to materials, connecting SMEs across Europe through European calls specific to put the ecosystem together with implement these actions, transfer of knowledge. Dario, if you're still with us, I hope you are, because you talked about the role of clusters. Does that go in line with the role of clusters you foresee? Could you just make a short comment? I mean, you might have been one of the respondents as well, but how does this look like? Give us a comment, please.
Yeah, sorry, I was unmuting. Thank you. No, this is really helpful, and indeed it ties in and aligns with the feedback that indeed was provided during the co-creation process, as reflected in the actions concerning clusters, which indeed refer to the need to improve collaboration, to speed up the transition, and to support cross-sectoral initiatives, and also indeed provide support to set up new clusters. I see also indeed creating synergies to create innovation, as well as the importance of financial support, particularly for SMEs, and therefore the issue about access to funding, better access to funding, particularly for small and medium-sized enterprises.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for lots of responses. Actually, have a dedicated expert on policy trends, lead the transition with knowledge dissemination and creating synergies to create innovation. The clusters should lead the implementation and transform it into local actions, have a dedicated expert on policy trends. I think I mentioned that one. Expand to have more members. Quick financial support for rapid action and implementation. Brilliant. Lead the transition with knowledge. Okay, this one I've read. Okay, so we are getting many responses. That's very instrumental, very useful. And let's see what clusters now have to say. We will move to the panel debate, and we will talk about strengthening the European economy through collaboration. And with us are four speakers: Head of European Affairs at CARA, that's Jean-Baptiste Hahn, Managing Director at Autocluster, Libor Dobesh, Managing Director at CNA Center for Transportation and Logistics, Rudolf Aunkoffer, and also SME and R&D Project Management, Automotive Transformation Hub, and representative of that hub is Pascal Strobel. So thank you very much for joining. Good morning to all of you. And maybe we could first of all begin by you giving us your idea of how clusters can participate and improve and help the transition pathway. And just tell us a little bit about your cluster as well, so we know more and understand what you're all about. Jean-Baptiste, let's start with you.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So Jean-Baptiste Hahn, Head of the European Affairs at CARA. We are a French mobility cluster based in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes. The idea, I think, well, clusters are actually really good tools when you need to target local SMEs. We have this regional anchorage in our regions and with local stakeholders. So if you need to promote and disseminate your strategies, your opportunities at local level directly to small companies that are actually most of the entities in the European economy tissue, clusters are the right tools to do that.
Thank you. And you said that it was a French cluster. Would you give us a bit of a overview of your activities and the members? How many members have you got?
Yes, of course, sorry. So we have 420 members, gathering different transport modes, actually 6 transport modes. So automotive, heavy-duty vehicles, railway, aerial-guided transport, active mobility, and finally the maritime ecosystem. So we work with all these members in order to facilitate innovative projects, and especially collaborative projects at the local level, national level, and European level as well.
Thank you. Libor, what about you?
Yeah, hello, good morning to everybody. Thank you for the invite. I am from North Moravia and the Czech Republic, representing Auto Cluster. We are the only Auto Cluster in the Czech Republic at the moment, having our history coming from 2006 until now. We have roughly 90 members, 45 of them being tier 1, 2, and 3 suppliers of different size, from big international companies to the small businesses. Then we have 5 technical universities in our troops, 1 business university, 5 high schools, and the rest, which is up to 25 or so, are the technological companies focused on process improvements, total productive maintenance, digitalisation, R&D projects, etc. So we combine lots of skills within the portfolio of our members. We focus primarily on 3 legs or 3 pillars of activities. One is the human capital development, so it's focused on skills and upskilling, reskilling of the employees in different companies. Then sharing the best business practices and business models. And the third is to focus on common R&D projects using the state-of-the-art technologies. Thank you.
Thank you. And what is your take on how clusters can support the implementation of the transition pathway for mobility? Did you put in your answer into the bubble as well, or do you have quite a different view?
Well, we are already in it for a few years. We have lots of activities in all of these fields. One is looking at how the technologies can save energy and be more productive. looking at the total equipment of the plant and the possibilities in digitalization, how to enhance the production facilities by state-of-the-art technologies, being, for instance, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, virtual reality, etc. So which we have a few projects already running. And maybe one of the things to mention, just coincidentally, 29th of February, we have the mobility roundtable in the region that we already organized together with the Innovation Center in Ostrava. And that's encompassing the local members coming from big companies, R&D centers, etc., sharing the experience and creating the working groups and then working on the specific tasks. So very similar to what Dario was presenting or Giuseppe on how do they approach it from the European perspective. And one more thing to say, we are not focused only on our members. We work in the national networking. We work International Cluster Association in the Czech Republic, looking at the cooperation with the other clusters in the Czech Republic. And we look at the cooperation with the other clusters in European Union, especially the ones that are in the EACN network and the others as well. And one more thing is, even though we are automotive, that's not the sole business. Most of the automotive clusters have recently added mobility to automotive and mobility clusters. So we are one of them. And we share also the best knowledge from the other ecosystems, for instance, from the agricultural and machinery, from the tourism, from the healthcare, from the aerospace. So you can combine these approaches.
Thanks. So the event is that you mentioned is in the Czech Republic, meaning you cannot attend the event in Brussels.
Well, it depends what the time is. On the 29th,
Okay.
on the 29th, we have the event coming planned from 1 to 4 p.m., which is the roundtable, physically people attending, sharing their ideas and creating the work groups. So we try to make it interactive. In this case, I will have a look at what happens in Brussels after the fact, unless you have it late afternoon.
We'll see what Giuseppe will have to say, but let's see, Rudolf, what about you? Could you introduce your cluster a little bit and give us your take on how clusters can support the implementation of the transition pathway for mobility?
Hello and good morning from Bavaria. We are a German-based non-profit organization. We have 3 basic pillars. The first one is cluster rail tech. The second one is transport and logistics. And the third one is mobility with focus on city mobility. This is what we are doing with about 250 members and a close network of another 600 partners. From our understanding, speaking especially for the rail tech industry, your transition pathway is great because he is exactly describing what is the challenge of the European railway industry. We have country markets, we have a lot of small SMEs, and basically a lot of small SMEs are depending on a very, very few large enterprises, which are basically doing all these railway systems. And therefore, from our understanding, the big challenge and also the big opportunity is to connect these localized, specialized SMEs to other major OEMs, to other major vendors across Europe, so that we are coming to a real European rail tech industry.
Thank you for raising this issue. I understand it's that small SMEs depend on large enterprises, and the big issue is to connect local SMEs, right?
Right. Connecting local SMEs beyond country borders. So basically all these SMEs we are knowing from Germany and also from the ERCE, the European Railway Cluster Initiative, they are all focusing on local business. And what's missing currently is a European approach. And if we are taking the aging of our industry into account, that a lot of these small SMEs are basically working with people above 40 or above 50 years, this connecting across Europe and gaining new young people into a more attractive international industry ecosystem. This is essential for a transition in the future.
Thank you for raising this. We'll come back to this issue in just a moment, but let us also hear from Pascal. Thank you for joining, and thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you. The region I'm responsible for is the Saarland, so next to France and Luxembourg. We are a strong automotive region, about 40,000 employees, and with well-known automotive enterprises like ZF, Schaeffler, Michelin, Magna, Ford. So famous enterprise and a lot of small SMEs. We also which are also present in our region, and so the challenges in the automotive industry we are well concerned about. What's our way, our pathway to go? We have a strategy. We come together with the stakeholders in the country to discuss about the best ways, best technologies to support the promising technologies, and so the government take this input of our actors in the region, and is especially concerned to have a good technology transfer and to a good entrepreneurship with new products and new aspects in the products concerning the new way of mobility.
Thank you so much for this initial contribution. Technology transfer, supporting promising technologies are the key words, I would say, from what you have said by now. But let's go back to a specific example. And I wanted to refer this question to Giuseppe, but I can see that he's raising his hand anyway. But let's react to Rudolf's comment about railways, for example, and just let's look at this as a specific example of what European pathway for mobility, how can it, how can it solve the situation?
Indeed, thank you, Sivile, and thank you very much, Rudolf. First of all, because it shows, your intervention shows that there is people who already started reading the report, so it's good. So they're fully aware of the insights contained in it. But jokes apart, it's really one of the main evidence that was coming out of this exercise. This first exercise was that indeed companies, European companies, in some sectors is even worse than others, but beyond 90% of SMEs, and those SMEs very active at their own local regional level, but they, unfortunately, often their work is not visible to across borders, and those companies are most of the time they're busy with their business, daily business, and they don't have time, they don't have the structure to commit with the pledges, communicating their own strategies outward, and this is exactly where the transition pathway implementation tool would like to intervene to allow any company, not just the large one which are already used to share their strategy across borders and make them visible, but also SMEs to communicate and to make their own pathway, let's say their own corporate pathway visible outside their own region and their own country borders, and this is where the platform that I mentioned earlier that we are delivering soon, the web platform, will even contribute even more to this, because the idea is to make really this platform match making platform for those SMEs that might have a big potential for synergies, especially on on border regions like Pascal was mentioning, the Saarland with France on the other side. So you guys, I'm sure that you guys are already doing a good work on this, but our tool would come to support even further this kind of activities, and not only across borders but also across ecosystems. There are some new business models. For example, there is what we noticed is that the big potential now of this potential synergy between the energy ecosystem and the mobility ecosystem. We're going towards electromobility. Electric cars have batteries, and those batteries all together can work as a buffer, for the energy system, the energy grid, especially if we inject more and more renewable energy, which is unstable by nature. We will need more buffer, and the EV fleet can work as a buffer. But in order to make this happen, we will need a lot of cooperation among not only OEMs but also energy suppliers, but also charging point operators, grid operators. So it's very ambitious. I mean, the promise is very, very, very nice, because it can bring savings, it can bring efficiency, but it takes a very high level of cooperation. And yeah.
Pascal, you're working on new products in the automotive sector. Do you see this tool supporting your activities as well?
We have some enterprises working in the energy sector as well as the automotive sector, producing the chargers and also the grids to charge. So there's a link to the energy supplier and to the car, and the goal is to achieve a certain level of autarky, and that each house is able to have their own energy. So the electric vehicle can be a part of the energy system, and that's a very important, promising part of the whole strategy, I guess.
Thank you. And I think Rudolf wanted to react to Giuseppe's comments as well briefly.
I can completely confirm what Giuseppe was saying. We have a strong focus on commercial vehicles, so all these big ones and other ones which need more power than other ones. And but just by coincidence, there is power electronics. And of course, everybody knows about power electronics, but companies are very specialized either on rail tech or on transportation and commercial vehicle. And simply the companies by itself found out that two ecosystems have a very similar situation. They both have to get a bit more green, a bit more efficient, to say it in this way. And therefore, this is happening. And basically, clusters and any platform which is helping is increasing our speed of innovation. So we are talking in a lot of areas, especially where we have digitalisation, about innovation by combination. So no complete new idea, but seeing the idea from somebody else. And this is actually what is slowly already going on, even in industries like rail tech and transportation, which are a bit behind in digitalisation. And from my understanding, reading the transition pathway, we have now a tool and a clear strategy and a roadmap for getting more speed and more dynamic in a clear direction. And I think the outcome will this effect of innovation by combination be that a lot of companies are realizing, cool, somebody else is working on the same topic, let's team up and do it together, more efficient, and maybe with a clear advantage in relation to companies outside of Europe, because this is what I was typing in. The transportation and the railroad industry, we have still the complete value chain in Europe. So we didn't lose them like in the chip industry, where basically, even if we are building now plants, all the equipment is made in wherever, but not here. So we have still the complete value chain, the complete ecosystem here in Europe. And it's the right way from our understanding to strengthen this ecosystem and make this ecosystem stay in Europe.
Thank you. I will encourage everybody to ask questions by raising their hands and commenting. Also, we invite you to speak with the panelists. And I would want the remaining two clusters to also single out their challenges. What would you say, Libor? The previous speaker mentioned the speed. Which would you say is the area in which more speed and attention is needed in your case?
I take it from a broader perspective. The best innovator states in the world focus on very long plan, and they agree upon it, so that you focus on the right disciplines, right technologies, availability of energy, steady energy throughout the year, 12 months a year. Manufacturing companies need to produce January, February, in the summer times the same way. Looking at the raw material availability and strategic piece of it, and that's something like what was discovered during the chip crisis, that the OEMs look down to tier suppliers, to the chip suppliers, and now they have lots of partnerships that makes stronger supply base. In terms of what Rudy said, the innovation ecosystem is the key. The regions and the countries need to be focused on fostering the innovation ecosystems as a part of being stronger in the competitiveness. Being competitive globally, you need to have energy, you have to have raw material supply, you need to have smart ideas and technologies and skilled people. Should you have all of this, you succeed. If something is missing there, very difficult to succeed. One thing is also the high cost, as mentioned in the Slido, the cost of that transformation. So I'm in favor of having the long-term programs that support year by year, decade by decade, the transition, and do it step by step with the evolution curve. We cannot make revolutions here because the revolution brings more efforts and with the risk. You can either win everything or lose too much. So step-by-step evolvement, looking at the regional innovation ecosystems, European innovation ecosystems, and their collaboration across the borders in Europe. We do have the companies in our cluster that are either international companies, foreign capital owned, and also Czech capital owned international, and having the span of activities from Europe to US to China. And the speed is the crucial thing everywhere in automotive. Like the design and development of one model line in the past was something like 46 to 51 months. Now, with the key competitors being much faster, you need to be at 24 months like Tesla is, or up to 28 months like most of the Chinese electric vehicles producers are. So the innovation ecosystem behaves completely differently. You need to be able to, from the scratch, to develop the idea and put it into the production side in much faster mode.
Thank you so much. I will still want Giuseppe to react to this and to say maybe a couple of words on how the pathway can foster innovation, because this is something that we have been talking for a long time, fostering innovation, and we still feel the same need for fostering innovation. Is there anything that you could say this particular document, other ways in which it could speed up the process of fostering innovation?
Look, Givile, and thanks a lot for the question, because it's really spot on. To the extent that it's not the document that is going to deliver; it's not the document itself that is going to deliver the speed, of course. And I agree that there is a big deal of work to be done at the regional and local level when it comes to promoting innovation. But I also agree with Libor when he said that it takes also some a strategic level of understanding of what are the right. At some point, we need to agree on what are the right technologies and what are the right where are the criticalities, the opportunities for Europe, for our specific region, and our role at global level. And this is what the European Union is trying to do, has been doing over the past years, with the recently adopted Critical Raw Material Act, or the Net Zero Industry Act. So these are all steps that are going, we believe, to the right direction. But indeed, as Libor also rightly underlined, it's not going to be like done overnight. So it's something that needs to be constantly monitored and constantly updated and adjusted where need be. And this is where this link between the local level and the national and European level is all the more important today, because we need this level of coordination, because we are competing with blocks, and these are real. These are countries. Like China is a country, US is a country, and European Union is not a country. So this is where we have a weak point, compared with other global players. And we need to do our best to bridge this gap. And how do we do it? One way could be this level of coordination with and we believe that the transition pathway platform in this context has a big role to play in order to reduce the distances between Saarland and the Czech Republic, and Rhône-Alpes, Auvergne, and Brussels. So we need to communicate much faster. Indeed, it's about time and speed.
Thank you. And Jean-Baptiste, what is your take on this?
Well, yes, well, first of all, I would like to like my colleague, acknowledge the need to support European transport stakeholders, especially to become more independent from fossil fuels, and especially with electricity and green hydrogen. But if I want to add something different, I would like to maybe highlight in the transition pathway, I was very happy to see the bicycle industry represented. This ecosystem is not that well represented in European institution, European association, especially when we're talking about transport and zero emission transport. We are talking about the partnership to zero, which is more focused on automotive, heavy-duty vehicles, and not bicycle as such. I believe it's because the bicycle industries and ecosystem are quite young, and most of this ecosystem is composed of startups and SME that don't have so much time to go to these European tools in order to keep their voice up. So I was actually very happy to see this bicycle industry represented in the transition pathway, and I hope it is the first milestone for this industry to become more visible on European level, and especially in the funding programs. From now, this ecosystem was actually represented in the mission program in Horizon Europe, so through cities, and they were not the target as such. So I hope that in the next year, we will see a little bit more open calls, direct financing support to this ecosystem. And maybe to add another comment, I see a lot of same word, which is speed, going fast, accelerate. I don't actually believe that the next and future of transport will be fast. I actually believe it will be a little bit more slow. Bicycle are slower. Autonomous shuttles are actually very slow. I believe that this is not the goal to create transport that will be fast and faster, but to create more frugal and more slow transport in order to respect more the environment and actually do this transition to a greener economy.
Thank you. Libor, did you want to comment on the bicycles not having to be that fast or something else?
Yeah, that's exactly. Agree with Jean-Baptiste. My declaration of speed was not mentioned to the mode of transportation. It has to be the appropriate for the purpose, whatever it takes. The speed was on design, development, new product launches, new technology launches, and the competitiveness of the industries so that they can introduce great products and sell it not only in Europe but throughout the globe and be able to be competitive globally. The competition is global. It doesn't care for the countries, for the regions, for the continents. Capital is global and acts globally. That was the it. In terms of the questions on some human capital, of course, no matter what technologies you will have some people somewhere involved in the production facilities or distribution or use of the product or service. People need to be educated and be ready to swallow that major change. Like the automotive industry has a major step change that's like the biggest over the past 100 years. And you need to get people trained and skilled and properly educated for the right level of the jobs, which we take also in what we call Moravian Silesian Technological Academy, that's using some electronic prepared modules of education that the students can play with on their laptop, on their iPad, can take the lessons, can specifically take the exam, and the teachers can teach themselves in it. And it's much faster with the innovation cycle than when we publish the thesis or when we publish the books. It's too slow compared to how the industry is changing. So by adapting the education model to the faster technologies, you can give the students the chance to be in there. And it focuses on high schools and also the curricula of the technical universities and opens the world of the technical science to the students and shows the opportunities in there. So it's skills, reskilling, upskilling is the key. And I'm glad that we can use also some of the European funds, being the Just Transition funds, for reskilling and upskilling employees in the region.
Thank you. I want to go back very briefly to the cycling question because, as Jean-Baptiste mentioned, he's very glad that it's now in the pathway, the bicycles. Also, there's a question from Amélie. Are there concrete plans of integrating the cycling ecosystem and its companies more into clusters? And we'll go back to Giuseppe with this, but do clusters want to comment on integration cycling into clusters? Any one of you that has already cycling integrated, Jean-Baptiste?
Yes, maybe. Cara, we have integrated the cycling industry more than a year ago. It was actually local associations that we support at the beginning. It was 4 years ago, and then we merged together when the association was strong enough. Actually, France is quite well structured now regarding cycling ecosystem and animation of this ecosystem through the clusters. We are 4 mobility clusters in France. Most of them have already integrated cycling ecosystems. So I believe France can be a good example for other countries to how to integrate properly and the cycling ecosystem and work together at a national level, because it's mainly this point to not to be in the silo of the regional level, but go national and then go at the European level when we have identified other countries that have integrated and structured the cycling ecosystem.
How would you see the integration of the bicycle activism, cycle associations, and pro bike platform that are quite active in most of the country? That's Clementine. So I think she's asking you, Jean-Baptiste, into the cluster ecosystem to help with the transition.
Yes, that's actually something very interesting because the bicycle ecosystem is quite different from the other transport ecosystem, as it is, first of all, defended by activists and from people, from citizens. This is how this ecosystem is born, which is quite different from the automotive and heavy-duty vehicles. So this is how the ecosystem is born. And this is how it become more and more important. I think right now there is a transition as well in how the cycling ecosystem is represented. It is not that much activism right now. It is obviously a big part of what the industry is, but it is actually a very structured economical industry right now. So they are taking the element of the traditional industry in order to become a little bit more represented and structured at national level, and then I hope at European level. So I believe there is this transition, or there is less and less activism, and it is become a little bit more like an economical element of traditional economy.
I saw that Rudy was raising his hand, so I'll go back to you. But I think Libor, who is raising his hand now, might want to comment to this specific statement. Then I give you the floor very briefly, where we will be heading towards the end soon.
Yeah, we can have a look at the examples of what Jean-Baptiste is saying and see that in more detail. One of the remarks I may have here is that within our mobility roundtable, we have the representatives of the region or the town hall, and we look at something what we call smart mobility in the town, where the shared vehicles and shared bicycles and whichever are also the part of it, and we integrate it into the work group. So not necessarily in the cluster organization. However, as activity, it's registered in smart mobility in the town group.
Thank you. Rudolf, did you want to comment on this?
Yes, I would like to do one comment based on the bicycle ecosystem, and in relation to one comment, investing in culture changes from a citizen.
Because there is a question, right? Let me read it out. Miguel is asking, it's a very interesting, quite philosophical, but also very important, I think, question. Each day innovation is more and more just technology, he says. Investing in behavior, culture, changes from each one of us citizens is being forgotten. And Miguel is asking why. So will you tell him why?
I would add two small aspects. The first aspect is especially in rail tech, there are so many regulations. So especially the large ecosystem providers, Siemens Mobility and whoever, Alstom, Stadler, whoever is doing this business, they are doing a lot of research and testing and asking people whether this or that is working simply out of security and acceptance reason. So this is basically behind the scene implemented from our knowledge. And there is a second thing I just want to point out. Remember a couple of years ago, the telecommunication industry was believing every mobile needs some buttons to push. And then Apple was coming and telling everybody, and these times I was in the telco industry, in the whole industry, Nokia, whoever was laughing, telephones without buttons. So sometimes companies and innovation have to showcase and to demonstrate that things are possible. And then, of course, it's the decision of people whether they want to use it and whether they like it or whether they don't like it. And I think this is also relevant in the mobility ecosystem because it's becoming smart on one side. So companies, industry can measure reaction. And on the other side, it's the basic task of an industry or of an industrial ecosystem to showcase and to show what is possible to people. because otherwise, Henry Ford was saying this, we would still use horses and no cars. So this is maybe a peculiar thing of innovation. But for rail technology, companies doing a lot of questioning of people and asking how this door and this window and whatever is fitting to people's need.
Thank you so much. I will go back to the commission very briefly. I just want to ask Pascal one last question. Maybe we haven't covered finances very much, investment needs for SMEs and how their these needs can be met. Pascal, what would you say?
Yeah, it's very important that the SMEs will be supported, especially for their delivery to their main customers. At the moment, many OEMs have a need for new products from their customers, from the suppliers. And of course, in the chain, they are the main suppliers, but they are around the small the SMEs, and so we have to support them when they have a need of new technologies to install, and that's what we do with the cluster work. The main topics are focused, and so it's also the support in this subjects we focus.
Thanks. And now I think to round up and to wrap up, we will go back to the commission. Dario, Giuseppe, we have heard many topics. We have talked about cycling quite exclusively. Would you want to connect the dots and tell us again how the transition pathway will now help us, and how we, or the clusters, can make most of it, and what are the urgent actions they need to be taken up now?
Maybe just a quick answer on the cycling part, and then I leave to Dario to wrap up. So just to react to Jean-Baptiste's question and open question, about the role of the cycling industry within the mobility, the overall mobility ecosystem. What I can tell you is that a first quite significant evolution was already recorded while we were doing our co-creation exercise. Because when we started in 2021, then there was a round of consultation, and out of this round of consultation, the need, so initially the ecosystem was shaped differently. It was only about automotive, maritime, and rail, and cycling was not explicitly mentioned as part of the ecosystem. So the first milestone, I would say, was to include the explicitly include the cycling industry within the definition, the scope of the ecosystem. And then the second and I would say more tangible result of this inclusion is being recorded a few months ago. Back in October, the European Commission has issued a proposal for the European Cycling Declaration, which is now being discussed by the co-legislators, with the view to adopt it hopefully by within the first half of this year. And it contains indeed a lot of principles and objectives and targets for specifically targeted to the European cycling industry. And indeed, I underline the word industry because indeed there has been a lot of activism in the past, but what we now have clearly represented within our transition pathway is the European cycling manufacturing industry, which is actually it's quite a successful one. Also thanks to the trend, which is a favorable one, not on the lower end bicycles, but on the e-bikes and speed pedelecs, cargo bikes. European companies are performing pretty well also to global level. So it's something that we want to support even further, this growth curve that we see. I'm done, and I leave it to Dario to conclude.
Thank you, Dario.
Thank you, Giuseppe, and of course, full support for what Giuseppe said. Now, a big thank you really for these EU cluster talks today. It was very helpful for us to hear the views from the stakeholders, from the cluster representatives. It was very helpful, and we have taken a note of all the insights and comments. I think what is evident is that we are advancing and we have to advance our green transition in a global competitive framework that is evolving, that is rapidly evolving, rapidly shifting, and that calls for, I would say, at least three urgent actions, which is first, what we have been doing, looking at all factors that implement, that affect, the competition while steering the transition process. That means, indeed, as was said, looking at access to raw materials, the supply chains. I was grateful also for the comment made about the importance of skills and the re-skills, which was highlighted. By the way, also in the context of cycling manufacturing, there have been some specific suggestions identified in the report. Funding and infrastructure. So really looking at the wide range of also tools, some of which we have in Europe already. They have been adopted. Some will need to be refined, will need to be reconsidered, but really have this holistic approach. The second thing is to act with speed in the sense also of facilitating the speed of innovation, technology development, and how to help this process. And third, build the synergies across sectors and within sectors and cross border. The example, for instance, of the necessity to steer and support the cross-border cooperation between SMEs and suppliers in various mobility sectors across various countries is fundamental. This is where we think that the next phase of the transition pathway can help by bringing all the actors around the same table. So by facilitating this process, by facilitating these exchanges, also best practices, and we look forward and hopefully to see you, many of you, at our event on the 29th of February. And in any event, we look forward to have a continued close dialogue with you during the next steps, ready, of course, to listen to your further input and comments or suggestions you may want to share to make this journey a success for the whole ecosystem.
And the event on the 29th is which part of the day? Because there is an event in the Czech Republic parallelly happening.
Indeed, thank you. Giuseppe, I think it's, you will confirm, but it's from 10 to 3 p.m., right?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the first half of the day. Yes, it's
The first half of the day, yes.
Yes.
Okay, Miguel is saying that the use of bicycles can only be tripled if they occupy the streets, sharing them with cars in safety and mutual respect. Building more bike lanes is not a solution for most cities. So that's his comment. There are still some more comments coming in and thanking the speakers for clarification as well, and thanking for their contributions. And I have seen that this contribution was mutually useful for both the Commission and also the clusters. And so the next step basically is to participate in the co-implementation, and the best way to do it, as I understand now, is to go to the event on the 29th, and then everything else will follow. So thank you so much for all of this. Thank you for your insights, your time, your contribution. Thank you everybody for asking questions, for being here, for listening, and for participating in the clusters talks. We will move on to some details, funding opportunities that we will remind you of, but I want to really thank the speakers now and remind the clusters of the funding opportunities that exist. You might know about most of them, but just a quick reminder for everybody. Effects of disruptive changes in transport towards resilient, safe, and energy efficient mobility. Project results are expected to contribute to, for example, transport systems that are resilient, resilience to unexpected events, increased understanding how sudden changes in the availability of transport means through dramatic weather events or emission-induced ban of certain vehicles in a city. And the deadline for this is the 5th of September. 2024. So that's one funding opportunity that we wanted to tell you about, and the link is in the chat as well, currently posted, so you can check the link in the chat too. The next one is advanced digital development tool to accelerate the development of software-defined vehicles that enable zero-emission mobility to zero partnership. Project results are expected to contribute to, for example, design and validate digital tools for the automotive industry for enabling best possible combination of digital development and digital operation for innovative zero-emission solutions, utilization of data, reliable virtual decision-making, modeling and simulation, software-defined electric vehicles, improve product quality, decision-making, efficiency, quality, and exploiting operation data. The deadline for this one is approximately in 2 months, on the 18th of April. That's another funding opportunity we wanted to share with you, and the link is obviously in the chat as well. So you can just basically click on it. Strategic Business Alliance for Urban Mobility, EIT, Urban Mobility. The overall purpose of the call is to foster potential collaborations between key partners to create high potential business opportunities able to accelerate the urban mobility sustainable transition. AIT is looking for companies that have identified an innovative business opportunity to work together in a joint venture, that have already defined a business case, worked on the international alignment, and are now ready to deeply work on structuring the business model. The aim is helping companies through the specific steps of the joint venture creation, reducing risk and ensuring them to support, especially in the phase of structuring the business model and its launch and operationalization. So the cutoff dates are November and May 20th of May and the 20th of November 2024. So that's this year, and that's the link to this funding opportunity. You can read more about and applies in the chat as well. Let's move on. Opportunities for SMEs, calls from Euroclusters. There are plenty of opportunities. You can have a look, but there are plenty of opportunities for SMEs. There's another slide, several opportunities. Again, have a look, do read about them. There is also, the link is also in the chat. All the calls are listed. Do not forget to register for the next talks. In 2 weeks, we will talk about support programs and funding schemes, cluster policies in the EU. And then on the 6th of March, Next Zero Industry Act, Zero Emission Technologies. So these are the 2 dates for the clusters talks for you to remember. Do register for them if you haven't done so. And we'll be very happy to see you as participants or as panelists, whichever is your preference and whichever views you've got and want to share. Let's see what else we've got. We encourage you to continue the discussion, especially in the European Cluster Collaboration Platform General Discussion Group on LinkedIn. The link, we will post the link to the chat. If you haven't joined that group, please do join it and participate in the active discussions on the social network called LinkedIn. And visit the ECCP website. Follow us, the Cluster Collaboration Platform, on social media. LinkedIn again. If you post anything, do use the hashtags EU Cluster Talks, or ECCP. And the website is clustercollaboration.eu. So do visit that one and do stay in touch with us. And we will see you in 2 weeks and then in 2 more weeks. And hopefully this will continue. The friendship and the collaboration will continue for long. So I wish you a very fruitful and interesting day. Continue with your work and see you next time. Thank you so much.